Good morning, everyone. Very good morning. Shall we begin the session? Today's topic is static data members. So that can be qualified or that can be used as a static. So a data member of a class can be qualified as a static. They can be used. So the properties of a static member variable are similar to that of the C static variable. And a static member variable has certain special characteristics. What are these characteristics? First is it is initialized to 0 when the first object of its class is created. So whenever an object is created, so it is initialized to 0 whenever it is used as an object, and no other initialization is permitted. Then second point is only one copy of that member is created for the entire class that is shared by all the objects of that class, no matter how many objects are created, no matter what is the main purpose of this object. And it is visible only within the class, but its lifetime is the entire program. And static variables are normally used to maintain the values common to the entire class. For example, a static data member can be used as a counter that records the occurrence of all the objects. So whatever the object they are hiring, that will be used for the occurrence of the objects. Now let's see what are the features of static member. So first of all, it is initialized to 0 when the first object of its class is created. And no other initialization takes place, that is, no other initialization is permitted over here. And only one copy of that member is created, no matter whether it is an object, whether it is created for the entire class or it is shared by the all other objects of that class. It is visible only within the class, but its lifetime is the entire program. So that depends on the class, that depends on the static member, whether it is visible within the class only or its lifetime is the entire program. And the static variable are normally used to maintain the values that is common to the entire class. For example, a static data members are used as a counter that records the occurrences of all the. So first of all, it is initialized to 0 when the first object is created, and no other initialization takes place, and only one copy of that member is created for the entire class and is shared by all the objects of that class only, no matter how many objects are created, no matter how many are visible. And it is visible only within the class, but its lifetime is the entire program. So it is visible within the class only, but its lifetime, that means its occurrence, is given with the entire program. And the static variables are normally used to maintain values common to the entire class. For example, a static data member can be used as a counter that records the occurrences of all the objects. The next program illustrates the use of the static data members. This is the static data members for class member. Hash include IOStream using namespace std. Class item static int count. So we are using the count variable that is of the static type. That means it is initialized to 0 first of all. Then int number, public void get data int a, number equals to a, count plus plus. So a will be assigned to the number and the increment the values of the count. Then void get count void cout count cout count. That means it will be represented with the count that will be given with the data variable that will be given with the data members. Then int item count. Now we are calling the functions, we are using the function with the class name. So int item counts int main. So that will be starts with the item ABC. So there are 2 or 3 values that will be initialized to the 0 because RC count is again the static data member. This is the A dot get count, B dot get count, C dot get count. There are 3 parts in this: get count, and the get count. Again there is the A dot get data 100, B dot get data 200, C dot get data 300. So this is after reading the data. These are the values that will be assigned. That is the display the count. The output will be count 0, count 0, count 0. After reading the data, the count will be 3, 3, 3. I notice the following statement in the program, that is the item or int item count, that is the definition of the static data members. Note that the type and the scope of each static member variable must be defined outside the class definition. That is again the necessity becomes the static data member that are stored separately rather than the part of the objects, and they are associated with the class itself rather than any other object. They are also known as the class variables. And these class or the static variable count is initialized to 0 when the objects are created. That count is incremented whenever the data is read into that object. That object may be incremented these 3 times. Now the next part is how to share the static data members, or what are the various provisions by which we can share it. The object 1 member, object 2 member, object 3 member. There are 3 objects that will be created out. Object 1 number contains 100, object 2 number contains 200 and 300. So the 3 parts, they are common to each and every object, and they are sharing with the static data members. And the static variables are like unknown on inline member function, that they are declared in the class declaration and defined in the source code, source file. And while defining a static variable, some initial value can be assigned to the variable. And for example, the following definitions will give the value or gives a count with the initial value 10. So this is the int item count equals to 0. That means we start with the count that has an initial value as a 10. That will be incremented or decremented, that depends on the value to value. Then the static member functions. So like a static member variable, we can also have a static member functions that is declared static, that has the following properties. What are the properties? A static member function can have access to only one static member or other static members. That will be a function or the variable that is declared in the same class. And the static member function can be called using the class name instead of its object, like as follows. Class name, there is a function name. And this program illustrates the implementation of these characteristics. That means, so we are making a static function that show count, that displays the number of objects it will create it out till that moment only. And the count of number of objects created is maintained by the static variable count. The function show count or show code displays the code number of each object. The next is static member functions that will be used. So that makes the hash include IOStream, that makes the class test, that is the int code and the static int count. So there are 2 parts. One is the code, one is the static int count. That means count is again the variable that is of the static and the int. Then public void set code, void code equals to plus plus count. The count will be incremented 1, that is a pre-incremented. Then void show code void cout object number code, then static void show count void, then cout count. So this will be displayed as a count variable. Then class will be closed and there is a semicolon. After this, there is a test and the count int main test t1 and the t2. T1 dot set code, t2 dot set code. So there are 2 parts in which in this we are using up. So that is our t1 dot set code, t2 dot set code. Then it will be initialized, it will be given a value, that is a test and the show count. Then again we are creating one more object, one more variable, that is the t3. We are using the t3 dot set count or set code. Then test show count, t1 dot show code, t2 dot show code, and t3 dot show code. So this will be used, so this will be available with the show count, and that makes the value, that gives the value, and in this there is a return 0. So count is 2 and the next count is 3. Then there is object number 1, 2 and 3. They will be executed whenever the set function is invoked and the current value of the count is assigned to the code. And since each object has its own copy of the code, the value contained in the code represents a unique number of its object. That gives a unique copy. And remember, the following function definition will not work. That is a static void show count cout code. Next is the array of objects. So we can also declare the array. We can also declare the objects as an array. Till now we have discussed, we created the class as an array. Now next is the we have also declared the objects as an array. That is the class employee, char name 30, float age, public get data, put data. So there are two parts: get data and put data. These are the two functions that will be used. And the identifier employee is a user defined data type that can be used to create the object that relate to different categories of the employee. For example, the employee manager 3, that is the array of manager 3, then foreman, that 15, that worker 75. This array manager contains three objects, that is the managers, namely manager 0, manager 1, and the manager 2 of the type employee class. And similarly, the foreman array that contains 15 objects and the worker array contains 75 objects. And since an array of objects behaves like any other array, so we can use the usual array accessing methods to access the individual element and then the dot member operator to access the member function. For example, the statement manager I dot put data that will display the data of the ith element of the array manager. That is, this statement requires the object manager I to invoke the member function, that is the put data. And array objects will be created inside the memory in the same way that we are using the multi-dimensional array. This array manager is represented and there is a space for the data member for the data item of the object is created. And these member functions are stored separately and will be used by all the objects. So there is a name, age, name, age, name, age. So for the manager 0, there is a name, age, two parts. One again two parts, name and the age, and the 0 and 2 both contains 2 2. This is one of the example that illustrates how to use the object array. There is an array of object IOStream, namespace, class employee, name 30, float age, public get data, put data, then void employee get data. So see out there is an enter name, then name will be input, then the see out enter age, then the age will be input, that is the C in age. Then void employee put data void see out name, that will be showing as a name and the age. Then we initialize the constant value of the size as a 3. So there is a const int size is 3. Int main employee manager size, that means 3. So for int I equals to 0, I is less than size, I plus plus. See out details of manager, that is I plus 1. Manager I dot get data. Then see out slash n. Then again there is I equals to 0, I is less than size, I plus plus. Manager I plus 1. I dot put data. These are the various details that will be showing up. Then object as a function argument.